Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to Face to Face. I'm your host, Dennis Ward. He's become a household name to many, a well-known face on the political scene in the United States, Canada, and around the world. But Standing Rock Tribal Chairman Dave Archambault never planned on entering the political arena. His hero, his father, told him to go into business, and Archambault would go on to get his master's. He did one term on tribal council and decided to never run again. But in 2013, he did run again for tribal chairman, not expecting to win, but knowing he could at least complain about their actions if he ran. To his surprise, he was elected. We welcome to Face Tribal Chairman for the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, Dave Archambault. And Dave, before we get too far into things, you were first elected as chairman in 2013. What were some of the issues that were facing Standing Rock at the time?
At that time, you know, it's interesting you asked that because I got to sit down with the former chairman. And the former chairman, his name was Charlie Murphy. And Charlie Murphy became the chairman first became chairman when he was 32. He's been in the seat in and out over 30 years. And so I asked him, I said, Charlie, chairman, what is the difference from when you first became chairman and now? And at that time he said, back then when I became chairman, alcoholism was a big issue. It was a problem for our people. It was something that plagued our people. And today, he said, meth is the problem. And he said, with alcohol, we could deal with it. We could manage it. We could get assistance with it. We can help. With meth, you can't tell until it's too late when somebody's on meth, and meth is something that's going to kill our people because you can't get away from the addiction. So there's a huge difference. So what we were faced in 2013 was there was an oil boom in North Dakota, and there were a lot of new drugs being introduced to our community, to our homes. There was black heroin coming in, heroin, there's meth, there was crank, there was cocaine. All this stuff is coming. And it's a corridor to the oil fields from inner cities. And when our members mess up and they get incarcerated and they go into a correctional institution in Rugby, North Dakota, and somebody from Newtown, North Dakota, where the oil boom is taking place, goes, there's a connection that's made. And pretty soon you'll see more and more people getting lost with this addiction, and more kids being impacted, and more babies being born addicted to these ugly drugs. And so we were faced with that. There were, I could tell you that housing, and it's still an issue today, housing is probably the #1 problem that we face, lack of housing. We have a waiting list of people trying to get into homes. So and then the economy we're faced with the state of dependency, and none of that has changed. And it's not something that we've done to ourselves and that we want to live like, but these are ramifications of 200 years of wrongs that this federal government done to us, and they put us in this situation. And now they expect us to have all the answers overnight. As a chairman, I understand that. So it's important that we try to make the investment in our kids. And we try to create brilliant minds. So maybe in the next 50 years or the 100 years, they can change the future. They will have the answers to the things that plague our people today. But we have to take that initiative to listen to them, and they do have the answers.
You mentioned oil, and oil and water is kind of what many people around the world now know this territory for. Thousands, as many as 10,000 or so came here. What did you ever think that movement and the support would become what it did?
No, I didn't think it would be. I didn't think it ever escalate to be what it is today. But I think there's a reason for it. I understand how it started and what got us there. It was something that our people have been plagued with problems issues for past 200 years, and it's the treatment that we have experienced. So we have lived in despair, And it's not just Standing Rock people. I would say Indian tribes throughout the United States have been living in despair. The tribes in Canada have been living in despair for 200 years because of the treatment of the federal governments. So there was a time when in this movement where a camp was started, and in that camp, people experienced euphoria. And people experienced living and helping with each other. But prior to that, there was a moment where it felt like we were going into war. And it felt like trauma was going to repeat itself. And it felt like violence was coming. So when we tried to change the discussion to peace and prayer and unity, that helped. And we start making it so that everybody was helping each other. And then one thing happened, and that's when money became more important than what was happening.
Do you think that this coming together of nations and people was about more than just a pipeline? We saw things at the camp that people had never seen before in their lifetimes in terms of lodges and just the coming together of the tribes.
That was the euphoria. And what is euphoria? Euphoria is extreme happiness, extreme excitement. So if you live in despair for all your life, your grandparents and their grandparents, there's despair for generations. Now when you get into that state of euphoria, you have to start and listen to the lessons that we're showing, and things did happen. And that a lot of the things that happened gave us lessons for how to deal with what's coming. And what's coming is a new president who is anti-Indigenous people, anti-tribal government, anti-everything when it comes to our people. So if we know that, and what are we going to deal with, and how are we going to deal with it, the best way to deal with everything is what we experienced when we're in that state of euphoria, and that is unity and with prayer. And we can overcome anything, and we're still here from all the trauma and wrongs that have done to us, and we're going to be here after this. And the things that we learned, those lessons, we're going to help this world learn those lessons.
Is there something that sticks out to you from the past year in terms of that camp and the coming together of people that impressed you the most, that leaves an impression in your mind?
There was a time when I would say there was probably about 4,000 people down at the camp, and they were pretty much all Indian. 90% were Indigenous people from all over, from different tribes. And I remember walking through that camp, and people were helping each other and giving their things to others, and they were taking care. And it was a time where I couldn't believe this was happening. I looked around, and there were camps beside each other, and it didn't matter who you were or where you're from, but it was pretty amazing that was, and that moment, it was in the evening time, and I was walking through the camp with my wife, and I just looked 360 degrees, and as far as I can see, there were people camping, and there were people laughing, and there was people healing was taking place from all the wrongs that committed to us, and that you could feel it, and it was really spiritual.
Chairman Archambault, what's changed since that time of euphoria?
I can remember when an article came out from a local newspaper that talked about donations, about PayPals, about GoFundMes, about organizations forming, and the amount of money that was coming in. And it was at that time, it was at the hundred thousands, and today it's over millions of donations have come. So as donations come and money becomes the motive, the euphoria goes away, and it's our self-interest. And so what we're there for then becomes not about saving the water or about our treaty lands. It's more about what can I get out of this. And it's not something that the tribe has always focused for the past 2 years on the pipeline and on the ramifications of this pipeline coming through, threatening our water, threatening our sacred lands, threatening our treaty lands. We've always maintained that focus, and we never solicited for money. But as campers seen what was coming in, it became about that more, and it continues to be about that today. And what it does is, what money and greed does is it creates division. So we were at a time where we were building up so much unity, and there was a time where it peaked, where everybody was united and they're praying, and more tribes would come. And then when it hit that point where division started and unity started, there less and less unity happening, and it's unfortunate because we start imploding on each other, and people start fabricating lies. And the problem with Facebook is it's not factual. Anybody could say anything and then people believe it. So we complain about the mass media not covering the real issue and the local media covering only one side. So we say we have the other medium, which is social media. But then in social media, when the stories are not validated, and there's just fabrication. So for some reason, people say I got a house in Florida. That's false. I never got a house in Florida. So people are saying I sold out, saying that the tribe is getting 30 million. We never sold out. But these lies that come out on Facebook then create more imploding and more division, more separation. And we've always maintained that we want to help people. We welcome people. We want them to share in that euphoria and that experience. But it's unfortunate that things evolve, and that's what this is a continual circumstances where they evolve, and we just have to deal with them, but not lose focus on what the tribe has started 2 years ago, and continue to protect the water, protect our sacred places, protect our treaty lands. That's what we've been all about, and not worry about the imploding that's taking place. But then also, we're concerned about people's safety. If we're going to be here to assist people, then we want to make sure that they're safe.
We're speaking here with Standing Rock Tribal Council Chairman Dave Archambault. We'll have more after a quick break. Welcome back. We're speaking here with Dave Archambault, the chairman of the Standing Rock Tribal Council. And Dave, before the break, you were talking about Facebook and some of this false stuff that's out there. We've mentioned your education background in business and management, and I guess one of the criticisms that's been on Facebook is about the store that you own and the fact that you own a gas station and you're leading the fight against the pipeline.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because this pipeline that we're fighting is going to transport crude oil, and it's going to get refined into different products. So for me, the way I look at things, I started a business 15 years ago, and I've been selling gas for 15 years because that's the only option available for the members in my community. And in our community, people are on fixed incomes, and they would have to drive to 48's or to Prairie Knights Casino or to Mandan or to Bismarck to get gas, and for form of convenience, so they don't have to drive so far. We offer gas and oil because that's the only means of transportation in a rural area like where I live in Cannonball. So it's not, people call me a hypocrite because I'm fighting an oil pipeline, but the reality is, and you have to be realistic about the situation, this nation has a dependency on petroleum. This nation has a dependency on fossil fuels. The fossil fuel industry feeds Congress. They are the ones who pay them. They are the ones who get them contributions for their campaigns. And so the decisions that are made by our lawmakers allow for this to happen, allow for pipelines to cross through our treaty lands, because lawmakers make it easy to do. Now we have a president who's coming in who's trying to even make it, to facilitate it even more, so that EPA laws are weakened and the process is streamlined even faster. We always felt that the process was already expedited, and didn't take our concerns into consideration. So, yeah, I sell fuel because there's no other options. But we can, the people of this nation, of North America, can make a difference. They can stop using fossil fuel. And if we all stop using fossil fuel, then I'll stop selling gas. But we have water protectors who fill up gas at our store to go fight fossil fuel. And then I get called a hypocrite. You know, I made this product available for my community because I was concerned about them having to travel long distances. So until we change our behavior, and everybody has the opportunity to do that. If I look at you and I see you covered with petroleum right now, the clothes that you wear are created with dye made out of petroleum. Your shoes are made out of petroleum. The mic that you have on, the pin in your hand, that's all made out of petroleum, and you're using that. So until you change your behavior, and we come and we force this nation, we force lawmakers to give us an alternative, and that's what we don't have, our alternatives. If we all drove Tesla cars, I would have an outlet instead of a gas pump. If we all used solar panels instead of natural gas or propane to heat our homes, those are the things that we have to start moving this nation to. And this nation should be the leader. But we're going backwards to an archaic industry. And we're sitting there watching China investing $3 billion in renewable energies. So we see a lot of things happening, and now I'm the hypocrite because I offer something for convenience of my members.
Chairman, we're kind of at a pause right now with construction, but do you think that the Dakota Access Pipeline will be completed?
There's no telling what's going to happen. If I had a crystal ball and I could tell the future, I would tell you. And so all I do is we continue to protect our waters, we continue to protect our lands for the future generations. And regardless of what happens with this pipeline, we lost because we're not taking the lessons that we're sharing and that were given to us. You know, we were told in the beginning, and if you believe, I'm not telling you to believe or anything, but we had a ceremony in the beginning. We said, don't use violence. So we try to keep this peaceful. And there was a lot, when we did that, a lot of lessons were shared with us. I said, you know, the way I see it is we won. But then as soon as I say that, people say, we didn't win yet. I understand that. But if we take these lessons that we learn and we apply them to what's coming, we can look at it as a win. Being able to unite with people, being able to unite with tribes, being able to do that with prayer, that's huge, and address a lot of things that happen. So regardless of this pipeline, we could have all the water in the world, but our people are still dying. Our people are using meth. Meth is death. That should be what we're saying. We should be standing up against meth. We should have these protests whenever there's a meth house in the community. Everybody should be standing up against the things that plague our people. Because we'll have all the water in the world, but our people will still be dying. We'll still be having babies addicted to meth when they're born. And we'll have water. So is water life? Water gives life. So does the sun. So does this earth. So does air. There are things that give life. And it's our choice to make that life the best we can, not only for ourselves, but for the future generations. So, you know, do I think this pipeline will go through? I don't know. Should that be the #1 priority concern of mine, or should it be the people in the future? And if standing up against this pipeline helps us understand and gives us the lessons and the tools to make our people live better in the future, then I take those lessons. And regardless of what happens, I think that we'll be okay if we listen to what the Creator left us with.
Dave, I feel we could sit here and talk for hours, but we'll have to leave it there for this time around. Dave Archambault, the tribal chairman for the Standing Rock Tribal Council. Dave, thanks for your time. Yep. Welcome back. Next week on Face to Face, we'll have another guest whose name and face has become synonymous with Standing Rock. Joy Braun was one of the first people to start a camp near the Cannonball River in April of 2016. She's a member of the neighboring Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe and the Indigenous Environmental Network. She's been on the ground in Standing Rock before many even knew where or what that was. Here's a peek at some of that interview. Joy, are you shocked at some of the treatment that people have received here?
I'm beyond shocked by the treatment that our people have received here. And the brutality and the evil, you know, and the things that these sheriffs and these police and these security workers have hollered at us.
That's all for today. We're always looking for new guests, so if you have any suggestions, please email us at news@aptn.ca. Thank you for tuning in to Face to Face. I'm Dennis Ward.